Hi guys, my name is Doug. Welcome to Third Style Garage. This is a channel about the restoration of a 66 Mustang called VIN. For those of you following along, thanks for subscribing. Hit the bell notification, give me a thumbs up, post a comment below. You may be wondering, where the heck have I been? It's been since March 12 since I posted March 12 since I posted the last video, and it's already Thanksgiving, and it's been a story. Come back after the intro and we'll talk a little bit about why, and I would love to hear your thoughts on speed of projects and how you manage that. I'll share some of my story, but I'd love to hear your story too down in the comment section. Shout out to Merceman Farms, good friends of mine. These guys are awesome. And shoot, I'm willing to wear almost any sweatshirt on the episode, so feel free to send me a sweatshirt and I'll wear it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Enjoy the rest of this episode. So the last video on VIN was uploaded on March 28 of 2021. It's now Thanksgiving, so it's been over half a year since I've really had time to work on the Mustang. And why is that? And why do you care? I would love to hear some of your comments below as to how you guys who are involved in a classic car restoration, how do you deal with the fact that for me and for many of you, this is a long haul project. I've often said this is a 5 to 7 year project. I have no idea how long it'll take. I've never done this before, and burnout's a real thing. So what's been going on the car and in my life since March 28 of last year? Well, part of it's COVID. It's been going on. I'm involved in leadership in a summer youth camp and year-round outdoor education and retreat center, and that's been pretty consuming. I move on site there in the summer. This summer I was able to take a sabbatical. I had 8 weeks on the road with my wife, and we disappeared into God's creation in the national parks and just hid away for a while. And it was a way to recoup and rest and recover and reclaim our lives and our sanity. And I think there was just a bit of me that was overwhelmed by the car project. And so I turned my attention to a bathroom remodel project. I'm pointing this direction because the house is over there. And we remodeled the bathroom project last spring. We bought an old 1960s Can-Ham travel trailer. There's a bunch of other videos in YouTube on that. But that was just a spring project, and we took it on the road camping this summer, put about 8,000 miles on the road with it. And it went great. It was awesome. But how do you keep up on a long-term project like this? How do you not get burned out on it amidst the busyness of day-to-day life and committee meetings and family life and projects around the house and work and all of that? And I'm curious to hear what the rest of you do. How do you keep the motivation up on it to keep it going? The other challenge for me was I'm up against a hurdle with the car project that I've been kind of just in my subconscious noodling for about 6 months and trying to figure out how to tackle. And the problem is this fender fits horribly. It's not even close. The driver's side fender fits a whole lot better. Right now I've got it to the point where the cowl is clamped in place. The firewall's clamped in place with some screws. I have underneath the fender aprons are clamped into place as well. None of it's welded in yet. And so I'm trying to figure out how in the world do I figure out what's going on. And I've tried 8 different ways to take measurements from different spots, compare it to other cars, compare it to what I found online, and just simply I couldn't come up with figure out what's going on. But the mounting points on this fender just simply aren't close to lining up at all. So I'm trying to figure out, before I weld in those fender aprons, where is it going wrong? I don't want to weld things back together and weld a mistake into the car. Fortunately, the driver's side, everything lines up the way that it should. The passenger side is not quite so, and it's just difficult to compare the two with any sense of accuracy. I've been trying to measure the angle of the shock towers in different dimensions, and with the firewall completely out, the dash being curved, it's just hard to come up with a point of reference to measure to. So here's what I'm thinking of doing. Here's my plan. Stay tuned and we'll kind of see how it works. The back of the car has been really well repaired by somebody who did some previous work to it. Both doors are on, and what I'm going to try to do is just work and build the car from the back forward. And I'm going to start with the doors. I've checked the hinges on both of them. There's really no flex in the hinges at all on either side. I don't know if they've been rebuilt or not, but the hinges are in pretty good condition. So my first job is I'm going to be working on the doors and get all the alignment done in the hinges so that the door swings closed without the use of the striker. My gaps or reveals on the bottom and on the back are exactly the way that I want them to be. Get those dialed in on both sides. Tighten down the door hinges, and at that point, I'll feel like, okay, the front line of each door hinge is in a good position, hopefully in and out, relative to the gap in the windshield frame and the rocker panel down below. That will give me a solid line here that I can then, on the driver's side, fit the fender to and get the fender mounted up. Once I get the fender mounted up, I can put the hood on that side, and then I can start working on this fender on this side to make sure that it fits to the hood, fits to the door, fits to the cowl, fits to the front apron. Then I can finish mounting the hood, and at that point, maybe the headlight buckets. At that point, I will hopefully have everything test fit so that I'm happy with the way that it all comes out. And if that's the case, then I can tear it all back down, weld in the firewall, the cowl, the fender side aprons, and all of that. So basically, I'm gonna start with the doors, build my way forward from there. It's a plan. All it is a plan. We'll see how it goes, and we'll take it from there. So if you've done this differently, if you would have tackled it differently, post a comment down below and let me know what your thoughts are. But for right now, I'm going to take the hood and the fenders back off, and I'm going to start work on mounting the doors and making sure the doors are all square. On the door, the jamb of your door, so it'd be the B pillar, is the striker for your door latch. This is what the latch in your door latches onto as it shuts. Sorry, the furnace just shut off. It's a little cold in Michigan right now. It's like 25 degrees outside. This holds your door shut once you latch it securely and safely. It also can kind of locate the door over time as it sags. When you're setting a door, you really want to set it without the use of the pin. So you take this out, get the door so that it shuts with the hinges exactly the way you want it to, nicely and smoothly. Then later you put the pin back in. That way when you're shutting the door, it goes in exactly where it should, and then this just clicks and locks it into place, and that's how a door should work, as opposed to it being low and hitting this and riding up on it or forcing it down or something like that. Getting these loose can be a little bit hard. An impact driver like this, or one you can put into an impact gun, will work as well. Basically, there's just 2 screws that hold that in. I'm going to take it out on both sides, and then I can work on starting to set the door. Okay, so I'm going to start with the driver door. As you can see, I took the pin out on the B pillar already, and I'm going to start working on adjusting these door hinges. So right now the door closes nice and gently, you know, no latch there. It shoots a little too far. But my gapping is horrible. If you see, you've got a great big gap there. It actually, the door is high. The gap gets tighter on the bottom, and then I've got a massive gap in the back, which goes to a really tight gap on the front. And ideally, the front line should come down and line up right with this line on the rocker panel as well. And then this should ideally match the fender. Now there are so many ways to adjust these doors. Let me move the... There are 6 bolts holding the hinge on, 3 on the upper, 3 on the lower. And then there are 2 bolts on the door here and 2 bolts on the door on the bottom. Maybe 3 on the bottom. If you loosen these up, they bolt into a plate on the back side of the A-pillar, and there's a lot of slop in there. So imagine that this is the door. If I loosen those 6 bolts, the door can move up and down this way. The door can move forward and aft. If I move one, like the top one forward and the bottom one back, the door can rotate this way as well. If you were to shim them, which hopefully you don't have to do, you can move it in and out. You can also adjust the in and out by loosening where the hinge is attached to the door itself, and then that can tilt you this way or move it in and out. I think there's also up and down and back and forward movement as well. So you have movement in kind of all 4 of the axes. All 3 of the axes, there's only 3. Can't move the door in time. Ideally, you'd like to end up with a gap that is about the same thickness as a painter's stick. So something like that along the bottom and on the back would be ideal in what we're looking for. So I'm gonna loosen the hinges and get to work on trying to adjust the door. And I've heard it takes a lot of finagling, so we'll see how it goes. All right, so first iteration of tightening it up. This is probably the first of many. Got it to a spot where the relief along the bottom is decent. It might be a little tighter in the front than in the back. My line here is pretty close. The door sticks a little bit proud of the rocker line. So ideally I would want the door to go back a little bit. The door is also in a little bit from the rocker as well. So I think I might need to adjust these bolts here so that the door can shift out a little bit. The gap on where the door meets the B-pillar is a little bit large, and it gets to quite a bit large when I get to the top. So that kind of matches with this gap being a little bit too tight and the door needing to go back a little bit. The other piece I need to watch is right now my door is hitting the windshield frame right there. So it's closer. I did put a towel down just to, I don't know, protect things a little bit. Pretty happy with the height of it. The doors may be a touch high compared to the rear rocker, but overall that's not too bad. So I'm gonna work on trying to shift the door back this way, up a little bit in the front, and then maybe out a little bit, and we'll see how it goes. We're making progress. For those of you that have done this before, I would love some feedback. The top of the door seems to be pretty close to the same height as the rear quarter. It's interesting that my gap on top is pretty large. Sorry, get a better view of that. The gap on top is pretty large. I can, it's maybe 1/4 of an inch, and then it gets very parallel all the rest of the way down. Right about here, it seems to get more even. And then my gap down to the bottom is pretty good. Gap along the bottom of the door here is pretty strong as well. Seems nice, fairly even, maybe a touch higher in the back. If I were to lower the door, the back corner down here, then I'm a little worried that this body line and this body line won't match up quite as well. So I'm curious what some of you will have done to fix this problem, or if I'm missing a way to fix that. In the front, my body line here where it matches the rocker panel is pretty good. It's still a little bit in. If you can see, the rocker stands a little bit proud right there. So if I slide my finger down, it hits. I have loosened up these two bolts. There's no more outward movement to space the door out a little bit. So I'm wondering if my only solution then is to build a shim to go behind this hinge and come out. The other situation that I have is up top, where my door is almost hitting the windshield frame. I realize if I look in here, I've got Bondo inside the top of my door. So I'm not sure if this curve here is right. I may need to modify that slightly. Other than that, I think the door is close, and I'd love to hear your thoughts or suggestions as to how to improve it better. I do feel good about the hinges. There's no slop in them. The door goes in all the way. It seems to stay pretty good. So I'm gonna move on to the passenger side. Here's my starting point for the passenger side. My body door line, the front of the door line matches the rocker panel nicely. My gap between here is pretty tight on the front. Probably needs to go up a little bit. On the back, my gap is a little bit big. And then it's not too bad on the door, and fairly even almost all the way up, slightly growing. Height-wise, I'm pretty good in the body lines there. Pretty good where they match there as well. And maybe a touch high on the door's a touch high here. So maybe I can split the difference of that a little bit. It's interesting that the door does not hit the windshield frame here. So I may need to take and match this curve over on the driver's side so I get an appropriate gap between the door and the windshield frame. So I'm gonna take this. Oh, by the way, my gap this way is pretty good too. It flows right down onto the rocker. Pretty happy with that. And I'll have to look. It may need to go in just a little bit. Can't quite get my camera in far enough, but if you look in there, you can see a little bit of an air gap. So maybe it does need to go in a bit. So I can play with that a touch. We'll start tweaking a little bit and see how it comes out. So I've been thinking about this door gap and why it's larger at the top than it is kind of from here on down. And I put a straight edge here on the edge of the door. It's a little hard to tell, but overall, the door looks pretty straight. Swing this out of the way and look at the door jamb or the B-pillar. I don't know if you can see that, but it does tend to appear like it drops away towards the top. See if I can give you a better view of that. Boy. Sorry, real high quality filming here, folks. I also notice if I look at this, so here's my straight edge on the B-pillar, and it goes up, and right about there, a gap starts to appear. And then I get to the top, and there's a gap of, I don't know, it's hard to measure because it's behind it, but there is a gap there. The other thing that I notice is when I look at my B-pillar here, looks like somebody's done some work to it. Some spot welds. I don't know if they put Bondo in there or just ground down some welds. Probably just ground down some welds. So I don't know what was done to this as well. I'd be really curious to hear what advice people have about that gap and how much of a problem it is, or what I could possibly do to fix it. I don't know if I would try to build this out or what that would look like, but we'll figure it out. Okay, so the passenger door is on. My gap looks pretty good here all the way down. Take a look at my fingernail there. It's 3/16 of an inch. Gap across the bottom looks pretty good. Maybe, I don't think it's much tighter on the front than it is on the back. And then my body lines here line up pretty well with the rocker, as well as line up, sorry about my hand, the contour of the car down that way. And my gap up top is a little snug, but there's a gap between the door and the window frame. As Joe Daddy would say, I feel pretty happy with that. So next, probably next episode, I'm gonna start fitting the fender on this side, get that bolted in and fit well in with the various different mounting brackets, and then that will hopefully start to place the fender on the other side. Thanks for tuning in. Today's episode was a lot of talking, not much actually exciting work to do, but it feels so good to get started again and be working on the car. And man, there was such an emotional hurdle to getting some momentum going. It feels good to be started on it. So thanks for tuning in and watching. Again, subscribe and hit the thumbs up button and leave me a comment below. Have a great day. Bye.